Hello and welcome to this segment of Joy in Our Town. Joining me now is Albert Chen, and he has been instrumental in starting a new organization, which actually is the American China Society of Indiana. Albert, thank you for being with us. You say you've been in the United States for 40 years.
40 years.
In Indiana for 30 years. And I'm always interested how someone who is from another country, how they manage to make their way to the United States, why, what's been their experience, and, other countries oftentimes look at the United States either in a positive or negative way, and yet people always still want to come here. What was your story, Albert?
Well, I think, just like everyone has an American dream. So
what was the American dream for you?
Well, American dream usually is a 3 item. One, you need to have a house, you need to have a car, and then you need to have a wife.
Okay. There are many husbands who might say, I'll take the house and the car, but keep the wife. We don't want one of those, or sometimes they ruin the house and the car. Those things are materialistic, though.
Well, you can say it's a material thing, but when you live in a very, very poor country, then you look in the people live in America, wow, they have a big house, they have a nice car, and a beautiful lady.
Yes.
So that's naturally become a dream, want to be in that point. But when I decide to come to here, really it's more for the education.
Okay.
So American always the top notch in the research, has a great higher education. So that's really the first step.
Now that was 30 or 40 years ago. I think now some of the test scores might indicate that maybe especially in science and some other things, I'm not entirely sure that, the American education is as high as perhaps it once was, except perhaps in the area of technology, maybe medicine and so forth, but, or am I wrong about that?
No, I don't think that's quite right, because if you look in a higher education, American still is in a top notch, okay? And we just too luxurious, we spoil our kids. So in elementary school, middle school, even high school, we neglect how to push them. So more of the younger generation push into more athletic, or singing, dancing, making more money than a scientist.
And
that make a change.
There was, in the last few weeks, there was a little controversy, if you will, about some woman who wrote about the tiger mom.
That's correct.
The Chinese tiger mom. And this tiger mom said, you're going to be violin, you're going to be playing the piano, you're not going to be watching TV, you're not going to be screwing around with your friends. This is what you're going to do. Did you have a tiger mom?
Not really, but my children said, after reading that article and talked to my wife, said, Mom, you almost like this.
Yes. And has it been successful?
I think they are very successful. My 2 children, all well educated, and they're all very nice, disciplined, and has a very nice career.
And where were you from in China? You say an extremely poor.
I originally come from Taiwan.
Oh, okay.
Okay, and there's no freedom. If you go back to in early 60s, and it's almost like today's China. So everyone looking to, the dream to go to America. And that's really, it's a situation I'm faced that time.
And how did you get here to get into the United States and get your citizenship and things like that? How did that happen?
Yeah, I think, originally I planned to go to doing a graduate study in UC Berkeley.
In what was the field?
Probably in the field in the science.
Okay.
And then unfortunately, the UC Berkeley is so many Asians. So I decided that's not a place I want. So I went looking for the place. It's a small school. So I moved into the Oregon.
Okay.
I stayed there for 3 years and working on the West Coast. And telephone company decided to hire me, apply the permanent resident for me. So I thought that is a great opportunity.
There you go.
So I want to stay here, so why not?
That's right.
Then after maybe 10, 12 years service in the company, they decided to promote me and moving me into Indiana. I really don't want to move to Indiana. I say, Indianapolis, why should I come to Indianapolis? And that's what I joking with you, kind of stupid,
Yes.
Why not? I never in other place. Why not go to Indiana? Then after 30 years stay here, and I love this place. And even my wife said, talk about retirement, that she don't want to move to anywhere. You want to stay in Indiana.
So your love is Indiana now.
That's correct.
And at this moment in our economic times, not only in Indiana but in the nation, the unemployment is high. Many of the jobs have been shipped to China, to Indonesia and so forth. India. Our jobs have been outsourced. You think this is a good idea?
It's not a good idea, but that is a trend. If you look in the 24th century, all the economic growth and the power will be shifted to the Asian.
Because?
Because they are starting to catch up and they're working hard. They want to improve their opportunity.
And pretty much they will do a menial task or, answering phones or doing things.
That's correct, yeah.
That Americans just aren't interested in doing.
Right. So with that, I see it's very, very dangerous for our next generation. So I fear, we need to catch up in some sense because the mass market is in China or India.
Now, when you say catch up, are you talking about catching up in employment or catching up in opportunity?
I didn't catch up in the opportunity. If you look in, just for the language alone, most of our kids only know America. The rest of the world, they don't know. So I thought you want to do business in China or you want to do business in India, we really need to learn their language, their culture. Without those, how do you serve the customer?
It's true.
So this is my last stage in Indiana. I fear need to pay back to this community. So what can I do? It's kind of raise my voice, said, let's pay attention to the Asia. So I has been planning to asking all kind of people, say, you guys need to pay attention to the Asian culture, need to pay attention to the Asian business. And most of the time, the large company, they do. Take, for example, like a Lilly or Roche or even Cummins, they're already in China doing business for quite some time. But how about our small, medium-sized company? They need to learn something, and they need to understand how to open the market in China.
And what are some of the things that China would have to offer, or the Asian countries in general?
I think
products.
I think they have a mass market, and they like a branding. Just like any people, the brand is very valuable. So when they look at American brand, even though it's very expensive, and they still want it. So it's important for us how to bring our product, even as a small product. For example, we may say, yeah, the furniture, China built a lot of furniture, but people can't afford to buy the American furniture because they love our skill. They love our product. And even though it's expensive, and they still have a market, we just don't have a people go there promote.
Now, Becky Skillman, I know the Lieutenant Governor, and I know that Indiana has been attempting to open channels. Is there a trust issue between the United States and China?
I think it's definitely, it's not necessarily mean a trust issue. The businessman, most of the time, it's because of connection. So you build a connection and start building the trust. So if you can get more connection together, how to utilize the relationship we have. In particular, a lot of new immigrants from China live in Indiana, and they have a lot of connection. Why can we utilize those connections? And also the government also put a lot of delegation, and they visit those locations and start to get a connection, and eventually should be able to see the result coming out.
And the results will be beneficial to Indiana? How?
First of all, if we can sell the product in the mass market in China.
Let's say T-shirts or whatever, that type.
So take, for example, I mean, most of the time, Indiana is very famous for the duck. You may not realize when...
Oh, duck, yes, yes.
When they understand that Indiana is the largest duck producer, export to China, you may surprise when you go to the Peking duck restaurant and that duck is come from Indiana.
Mm-hmm, okay.
If we can continue to promote that, so we can have a large duck farm and produce more people working in a duck farm and export a duck to China.
In other words, figure out what China in particular, Asia in general wants, start producing them, opening up the trade.
That's correct.
Is Indiana pretty free trade minded? To go back and forth, there's not a lot of red tape and bureaucracy to go through?
I think so, unless it's a very, very high-tech, have intelligent involved. Otherwise, almost everything you can export to any country.
And so, with the American Society American China Society of Indiana, you are in the business of trying to connect American businessmen or business people with Chinese business people, or all of Asia in general.
That's correct. This organization, and if you remember, there's a called Japanese American Society of Indiana. Mm-hmm. So that's back in 22 years ago when started to bring a Japanese company to Indiana, particularly on automotive. Right. So they currently has about almost 200 Japanese company in Indiana. So we thought maybe it's time's up to start an American Chinese Society of Indiana and bring all those people together. Besides trade, maybe we can bring a Chinese company to invest into Indiana and get that going.
Well, best of luck. It sounds, we all need jobs, and we do need to definitely increase the production and Indiana across the world. Albert, thanks for sharing.
Thank you very much.
And we're glad to have you in the United States. Thank you.